All right, all right, all right. We're back. We're back on the Greyhorn Pagans Podcast. Dustin, what's up? Thank you for coming on such short notice.
Greetings and salutations.
So Bock Saga Part 2.
Bock Saga.
Hell yeah. We will probably have Josh Chalavash, the tribal thing, join in
Great.
later a bit because I know he's very interested in this kind of stuff, and he actually went to Bock Tower. So
I don't know how related those things are, but other than the name. But
oh, really? There's some dispute.
Yeah, I mean the Bock Saga was kept within Ior Bock's family until 1984. So there's nobody who would have known about it before then. Yeah.
Okay. And speak of the devil, there
Hey.
it is. What up, bro?
What's going on, fellas?
What's going on?
So, it's a Bock Saga kind of day, huh?
It is. It is.
Sure is.
It always is. The more we speak it into existence.
Yeah, I was just watching a couple videos like the other day, and I heard this person come out, and of course, any skeptic that's seen like a breakdown of it, they're the first thing they're going to say, "Oh, this is just some crazy book about autofellatio. Don't even read it." And I was like, bro, how do you take that one snippet of one little piece of the book and just discount the whole thing because of that? That's crazy.
I mean, people do that all the time, you know.
I'd also like to point out that you can't really write the Bock Saga. You can only write about it. You can't actually. It's all in the words and the sounds. So, even the book itself is more of like good for reference material, but it's not really telling the Bock Saga.
Have you've obviously read it quite a bit and are fairly familiar with it. Have you read the Urantia?
No, not a big reader in general.
All right. The Bock Saga and the Urantia have some very similar takeaways on the human origins. They both iterate that humanity started in multiple places or a different place, not in one specific area of Northern Africa or whatever the case may be in the history writings. But it basically says there was one main race in the beginning, and then it split. When they diverged across the globe, they basically split into like three other races. And then those three races are what we knew as the Asiatic people, the African people, and the European people. And
we're gonna get into that today. Yeah,
because the Bock Saga says something similar, right? Although it does have the like we all started as dark-skinned humans.
Yeah, you can once you hear, have heard the whole saga, over and over and over. There's connections to it through everything, really, and it's kind of like your ultimate fact checker of all the other mythologies, of all the other interpretations of history and everything like that. It's kind of like your ultimate fact checker. Does it line up? If it doesn't, then they're either like close or there's some similar things to it, but just like you said, if you take one part out of it, something might connect a little bit to like one part of the saga, but the entire saga is, you're taking hundreds of millions of years of human history and into this one story. It's hard to cover all that territory with any one particular thing other than the saga. But that's what I want to kind of go over. And if we're focusing more on human origins and stuff like that, maybe I can lay the groundwork. I just messaged you a picture of an updated
Yep.
sound wheel on Telegram and your private messages.
Oh,
And
that's my.
yeah, so I on our first part one, it was a real cleaned up version of the ring, and we went over the sound system and kind of like the core basics of what each sound means. And so for here to really get into the rest of the saga, you gotta realize that this what seemingly complicated this seemingly complicated sound system is actually quite simple and is what fractals out. And when we think of a fractal, if you could pull up that image, I could kind of explain. It'll be easier to visualize the. So that's a digital version. Why don't you pull up my version, the handwritten version first? Pull up the other one first, because I just want to show you that when I was making it, I've made it before, and then I erased everything and left only the letters left. I'll let you know when you pull it up. But this really, zoom in there. Yeah, so this really shows the deep connections that all these different sounds have with one another to kind of fractal out. And it is in the sound system itself that the Bock Saga is actually told. So, and the saga kind of explains more deeply each sound based on the words in all of our languages. So you can take your first language, you can take the English language, you can take, all the different languages around the world, essentially, and use this flower of life sound system to back it all up. So if you say something wrong in the saga, the sounds are going to tell you you're wrong or validate what you're saying. So that's just an important point when we are going on from here. So origins of humanity. Yeah, that's what everyone wants to know. Where did we come from? And why do we have everybody who looks, we have these different races today. The Bock Saga explains that very logically, in a easy to follow way that a child can understand. So let's just start at the beginning. Yeah. So we have this place during this time of paradise, and now par radius et paradiset. Yeah. Radius is like a ring, and pa is like a pole. So pole and the radius, and just like in this alphabet wheel, you have the very first character before the A is actually the I, which is symbolizing the galactic axis that is going through the axle of the planet up to the North Star, which is the top of it. Okay, now at the top of this axle is Udinma. So Udin is the sun and Ma is the land. So you're talking about this place on the planet when before there was a tilt on the planet, there was a ring on the top of the planet that had perpetual sunshine. And this is Udinma. Still to this day, this area of Helsinki is called Udinma. It's like their version of a county. Okay, now from here, if you instead imagine this as instead of a ring, because if you're taking a circle and connecting it to all the other circles, you're going to have these spaces in between each circle, right? So what they did is more like a honeycomb, so a hexagonal structure. So now you can imagine taking every 250 kilometers from a central radius of 125 kilometers from a radius, and it going out and making a hexagon. And then outside of that hexagon, you have 6 more hexagons from Udinma. And this is the system they have the Bock Saga explicitly, in great detail, explains the system in which the Ossir, who lived in Udenma, used to populate the entire planet, and this a very precise system, and it all has to do with natural law of how they procreated and made all the people, and the rituals and the time of year and everything is dictated by the sound system of how to populate the rest of the planet. So we're going to fast forward here a little bit here. Now, using the system, they basically had ringlands for all of the available land on the planet. Now, during Paradise time, there was no ice on the planet, so there was less physical land. Okay, so the amount of land we have on the planet today is a little bit more than what we would have if it was all Paradise. Yeah, because once the ice all melts, and which is supposed to be, we're not supposed to have ice on this planet. Okay, but so let's fast forward. So this time period is said to be, according to the saga, more than 100 million years. Okay, so millions and millions of years. And I just want to remind people that if you really consider it, we're clearly one of the most ancient creatures on this planet. We are very advanced. We're very humans are far more ancient than we can actually provide physical evidence for. However, I think deep down inside, someone who's actually open-minded enough can understand this to be true. Yeah.
We all pretty much have come to the agreement in the tribe that a lot of us, should I say, understand that what we know is history of humanity now is basically just within this last cycle since the Ice Age.
Right, and not even maybe only half of that. Right, we've kind of narrowed down that blue eyes emerged about 10,000 years ago. The white person emerged 10,000 years ago. Written text is only what the oldest is the cuneiform Sumerian text, which is 6,000 years ago. So we're dealing with a very
Proto-Indo-European and Sanskrit are like kind of hand in hand, and then like you can see the divergence between like Phoenician into like Greek and what I would call is the closest to the Phoenician would be the Etruscan runes, because I mean they're like top down almost the same.
And if you break down those words, actually, like Phoenician, you can hear it as Finnish. So again, we're back to hell, and during this Paradise time in this ringland Udenma, this is your in that where that pole comes out of, that's your Midgard, and then outside of that, then you have your Asgard, where all the Ossir live, and then you have outside of that your Vanguard, where all the Vonir live. So you have your Ossir and your Vonir, and outside of Udenma, the rest of the lands in Paradise time were called the Ruse land, and this is for let's just say that the root language is very anatomical. It's in fact purely anatomical. And so describing nature, they're always describe the human form first. This is where you get your word normal, right? Nor means north, and mal means like form, like malleate or malleable in English. So it's your northern form is what is normal. Yeah. So you have the Ruse land, and this is named after the rose, right? And so each man has two heads and two necks, right? And there's a stem, and then the end of the rose of the plant we call the rose, but rose is standing for the flower that all men have. Yeah, the red rose at the end of our pricks. And so the rest of the lands were called Ruse land, and so that's where you also get your Russia today, Russia, and also the Etruscan. So the Etruscans are also of this Ruse people, and these are very early on, coming from the Ossir, very early on as well. So And Sanskrit is also a root language word. San and Skrift is basically your pen and markmanship. And it also brings a good point of the alphabet wheel we're looking at here. This is the male version, whereas women had a different script, and theirs is called sling script. So it's more loopy and no poles. Yeah. Whereas men are very polar. Yeah.
You know what the Etruscans originally called themselves?
No, what did they call themselves?
The Tyrsenian people. Tyrsenian, as in the sons of Tyrs. The sons of Tyr. The Greek people, for thousands of years before Rome was formed, the Greek people had a trading relationship with them. And the Greek people referred them as Tyrrhenian. And that area right outside of Tuscany and all that is the Tyrrhenian Sea because of that. The Egyptians actually called them the Turish people or Tyrish people, Teresh, right? So, I mean, every culture around them and themselves, they all describe themselves as the sons of Tyr.
Yeah, and that would probably be more in root Tor, Tor, but it would probably be closer to Tor.
Tyrrhenians is what they were called in Attic Greek, which is the Greek dialect of Attica, which includes the polis of Athens. Apparently, and this is only what Wikipedia tells us, so take it with a grain of salt. They called themselves Rasenna, which was shortened to Rusna, which says is Neo-Etruscan, but Tyrrhenians is what the very early Attic Greeks called them.
Before Greece was a common Roman settlement also.
Yeah, and it's apparently also where we get Tuscany, like the region in Italy, the Toscana, Tuscany. It's where we get that from.
Yeah, and I'm looking at one of the comments is it's the Rasul. So the Rasul were the race of people living around the Mediterranean there, and later you get the Romans from them. You also get down from Helsinki, from this area of Uudenmaa. The actual pole of the planet was divided right into these 4 quadrants, and that one of the dividing lines goes down through Poland, which is where that gets its name, and it divides Crete into an east and west. So this is what's dividing the east and west, is right down the island of Crete. And you see this later, kind of the east and west version of it, going from you have the Greek Orthodox, and then you have the Roman Catholics, and these are 2 separations of the same race of people originating in this area, separating again through relegioning. There's all the we're kind of fast forwarding a little bit there, because during Paradise time there was only one race. There's only the one human race, with an Allfather at the top of the planet, separating down and through the system of ringlands, and with the biggest, strongest male who was born of the Allfather managing one ringland and making all the people and the next caste of people in there, and then that next caste makes the 5th and final caste in each ringland. So you have
ringlands, that makes me think very much of how Atlantis was set to be built, or at least the city of Atlantis, not going into the metaphysical Atlantis.
Yeah, and that all of that is a game of telephone all over again, according to Bock Saga.
Have you seen how the North Pole is moving currently? Where it'll be in the next couple of years, off in the middle of Russia instead of over in Greenland? It used to move 3 feet per year, and then in the mid 80s it started moving to I want to say like 300 feet per year. And right now it's moving at over 30 miles per year. And it's like past Greenland. It's past what, like that big open stretch of water. And it's like gone right over the top of Finland, and it's like heading into Russia. So
yeah, it'll probably end
North
up balancing out.
Well, if you look where it's traveling to in a line, and then take the globe and tip that and put that point at the north, you have this ring of land that goes all the way around like California, Mexico, South America, Antarctica, and then it connects right back up like Australia. But it puts like basically almost all of the Earth's land, puts it right dead at the equator almost, right? With minus like Africa, that's like right on the side of the North Pole. But I mean, if you look at the rest of the major continents and the main landmass, dude, it runs in almost like a big ring right around from America, North America, the North Pole, all the way around down to the South Pole, and then back up the other side.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So so fast forwarding, so we have let's just skip ahead where the entire planet was populated with all these ringlands, and everyone's one race, and like you have your 5 total castes at the top you have your Allfather, and then with the women of the second Osser caste is making all the raw bees of the ringlands. So this Allfather is making maybe 200 kids a year for about 50 years to create the next generation of the father caste of each ringland. Yeah, because there should be about 2,000 ringlands. So he has to kind of make all those kids. However, oh my God, sorry.
No worries. But
no,
like
I just want to get the names right because I'm just like I have like a couple notes.
No, that's perfectly fine. But like all the kids and like the different tribes and whatever, like that has me thinking like would those eventually become like what we recognize as the other pantheons, as the Celtic, the Slavic, the Greek, the Roman, since they are
getting there. We're getting there because everyone was existing in these areas during Paradise. The entire planet was populated. It's possibly that it was more people during Paradise at one time than there are today. So we're talking about
people. Did you give a descriptor of them, like their skin, their hair, et cetera, et cetera?
Brown hair, brown eyes. Everyone was tropical. The whole planet was tropical.
Basically Aryan.
Yeah, so Aryan would be not describing white people. White people didn't exist yet.
No. I mean Aryan, like the nomadic steppe herders of Indo, like real Aryan, not the Hitler Aryan, not blonde hair, blue eyes, like brown hair, brown eyes, tan skin, kind of Mediterranean.
Everybody was the same at this point. It wasn't until where we're getting to now. I just wanted to say this real quick before I get there. So you have your Allfather, your Bock and Balder, Lemminkainen. He has many different names, Gubin, and yeah, that's most of it. But he's making all of the people, right? And then then you have a Jotun, which is the female from one of these highest. They basically have like 2 families at the top of the planet, and with the Jotun, he's making his 12 sons and 7 daughters. Okay, but with the rest of the with the Dizas, he's making all the Rabis, which are Rab stands for like your sperm, and then bee is like the pollinating animal. You know, the bee that flies around and pollinates all of the ringlands. Okay. And so he's making all of the Rabis, he's making all of the people. So each person on the whole planet can say that, like, if you're in the bottom class called the trail class, you know that all of the class above you, which is the Carls, that these are your fathers. This is your father. And then the Jarls, the Earls, are your grandfathers, and so on and so forth. So the top of the planet, he's your granddad, yeah. And so there's
how
this one.
How does Rob, R-A-B, I'm assuming, like translate?
Raw, just raw.
Okay, but how does that translate into, semen? Because I don't.
So you have to go back to the alphabet wheel. So this is a lot of as above, so below. But Ra stands for ray. It's basically like the sun. The moon gets its energy from the sun. So the Ra is representing the light being reflected off of the sun.
Yeah, I mean Ra, like the Egyptian solar deity.
Yeah, but in that case, it's a solar deity. But in Bock Saga, it's representing the moon, and it's representing the rays that are reflecting off the moon. So the moon gets its power from the sun, and it sort of stands for king, but it's your solar rays, and this is the same thing. It's what gives the moon its life, right? The moon would be a new moon, completely dark, without the sun. Yes. So it's this idea that also it's representing the sperm, which is the life water, right? We all come from a single, so, you can take that word, in root, it would be esperma, right? S stands for the sun, the sulin, and pair is we are all sons of pair. We're all pair sons. And ma, S pair ma, mama, father, son. Yeah. So that whole word, the word for that is where we all come from our fathers and our mothers. Yeah. I just want to, let's just fast forward here real quick, to now we're going to reach the first Ragnarok. Okay, and this first Ragnarok is when the Earth was perpendicular to the sun, its axis was perpendicular to the sun, and some event happened. And there's a few different things floating around of what caused this, but essentially the Earth received its tilt. So now we have the 23.5 degree tilt we experience today. Now, when this happened, it happened over a course of 3 months, and in this 3-month time, it changed the angle the sun had on the planet, and it evaporated all of the oceans. Not completely, but it evaporated the oceans very significantly. And through the spinning of the planet, the evaporation went to the poles and rained down ice on the poles. And this was considered the first destruction, the first Ragnarok. I could attempt to break that word down, but essentially it's, it may have something to do with the moon. It may have something to do with the mouth, because Ra is, something to do with the child making system that may have caused it. But you can think of that as like the Ra. And then Ragnar, so like gnarly, bro, and then rock, it's possible I could be wrong on that one. But when this happened, what happened is this area in Udenma, all the lands turned to ice. So now we're entering a time period that we call all the lands ice. And in root language, this would be alt land Is, all the lands ice, Atlantis, Atlantis. Yes, it's a time period where all of the lands, with all the countries that are still called lands today, England, Finland, Russia used to be called Rusland. You got Denmark, mark means land, Switzerland, Deutschland, Iceland, Greenland, etc., etc. Those are the only countries with the word land in it, and those are all the countries down to the Alps and Pyrenees Mountains was covered in ice. All the lands ice. Now, in this area of Udenma, So Udenma is actually the exact center location is located on one of those islands off the coast of Helsinki. Okay, and this is the Baltic Sea. Okay, and like Russia is fighting a war in Ukraine, right, for that warm water port in the Baltic Sea. So we know there's the Gulf Stream, and the Gulf Stream coming from the Gulf of Mexico up through the Baltic Sea. It kept and prevented this area from freezing over. And so there were survivors of this first Ragnarok in the ice. Now, this first Ragnarok happened 50 million, 10,000, and 40 years ago. So it was a very long time ago, right? This is the beginning of the Ice Age that happened 50 million years ago, and that 10,000 and 40 years ago. 50 million, 10,000, and 40 years ago this year, okay? And
did Ior Bock go to northern Finland and spend time around the Sami people?
There's a story of the Sami people. The Sami people were about 6,000 years ago. There were some conflicts going around in the Tibet with the conflicts with the Chinese, the Peking people, and the Hindustan people, and they sought refuge from the Allfathers in Udenma, and they allowed them to come stay up there. There are some documents they're recording this that were possibly moved, but the Sami people are originally from Tibet thousands of years ago, and they've also expanded. And those are the same people that populate Alaska today as well. And there's a lot of trade, and they know that each other are family members, and they, they farm reindeers and stuff like that.
That is funny. I covered a piece of that in a podcast Stein and I did not too long back, and was talking about the Sami and the
Suwami.
Basically, I have this, like, I've always had this feeling that people migrated from the poles to the center, not from the center out, right? Yeah. And I mean, yes. I've just always had that idea. Like, why would the first populations, the oldest areas that we see, right, humans being in, be like Estonia and down at the tip of South America and over in fucking Australia? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense that the oldest pieces of human proof that we're finding are in the far north and the far south and not in the middle.
But you know what I mean? It just makes logical sense too. It's the most central location. You can, like if you're going, think of this ringland system, this hexagonal ringland, you have the center one and then 6, and then it goes out kind of like that symbol on the bottom right hand part of Stein's background here. You can imagine it sort of like it goes out from the center, right? And this is going to be your most central point. You can even take the whole
the helm of awe or the Vulcan.
The helm, I think he means.
Not that one specifically, but the idea of it going outward,
something like it, and spreading in multiple different directions. And I can totally imagine. Like at least coming from the equator, not necessarily Africa, but at least like around the equator, because I mean it's a good starting point. Like you're literally in the middle. You can go south, you can go north, you can go either which way you like. And I just saw a video today, like a short video today, that they found the oldest remains of Homo sapiens, of us, in Germany, even, I believe, which dates back.
Yeah, that skull. You talking about that nice looking skull?
I believe it's a recent find, actually, dating back to when the climate. Bless you. When the climate here was, that's okay. Basically the same as it was in Alaska. So like with a temperature of pretty much a base temperature of -9 Celsius.
In the previous episode, we covered a little bit about the you know, what would happen when you die, right? And you would be burned and buried. And when you think of this whole ring land system, and then it even has its little more microcosms of the tri-ball, which is representing the 3 balls of where you have the man side, the woman side, and then the fire in middle, where the men and women do things together. And so there was nobody that was unaccounted for. So if somebody was going to be sick or dying, everybody was family and was keeping track of everybody. So everyone was burned. There's not going to be, you're not going to find a graveyard of paradise time. Everybody was back into nature, was put back into the system. So we're not going to find these, any evidence of paradise time. They never dug and carved rocks out of Mother Earth. That was against the nature law, right? It was, we're not going to ever find stuff like that. But in the Bock Saga, in all the words, is the way they lived encoded inside the sound system, which is pretty fascinating. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
You said the Peking, the Asian people, were warring with the Indians, basically, or the
Hindustan. Yes.
The Hindustan people, the northern Indians, right? Now, in the telling of the Gok Turks, right, which are the Blue Turks or the Celestial Turks, their history.
What are they called? The Goat Turks?
Gok. G-O-K, but the O's got the 2 dots over it. G-O-K-T-U-R-K-S, right? They're a real group from history. And the Asians, the Chinese histories write about it and say that basically they went to war with the Gok Turks, right? And the Gok Turks split off from another big Turkish group, the Asina Turks, and they basically fled across all of Europe and Asia and wound up in Hungary, right? Where they ran into the Scythian people. They were considered a shattered group of the Huns, right? And they were basically the Huns and the Aryans mixed and made the Hungarians, right?
So,
but if you look,
this is a quick.
We're fast forwarding a lot. I do want to get to this time period, but I think it's best if we tell it from the beginning. And so all of this stuff, you know, we're talking about the last like 8,000 years. That I'm a little more fuzzy on the details of the exact migration, but I think if I describe it from this ice time to the period that we're getting to, you'll be able to fill in a lot of details, and a lot of things are going to probably click for you, because I don't have all of that information of all the details and the specifics, but I do have quite a bit. Well, definitely leading up to this time period. And then once we get there and we have these more, everything gets, okay, well, let's just say when this ice is raining down, right? What happened is it separated the rest of the world from their Allfather, and it fractured everybody. Now you have ice caps coming from the south, you have ice caps coming from the north. And so the only survivors of humanity, besides this little area, this little pocket in Udenma, kept warm by the Baltic Sea, everybody was moved up to the equator where it did not freeze. Now, at this point, over the course of millions of years, instead of having an Allfather that unites the one human race, everything gets fractured. And now we're starting to see this king system. So in the original Asur system, you have a firstborn son who is kind of more of your bureaucratical king. And then you have the 10 brothers, which are the 10 Tintio, the Bal, Barknara, the Trollcar, and then you have like and they all have titles. It doesn't matter actually for this. And then but in this king system, now we have 10 tropical kingdoms emerge. So when you were saying there was 3 races, it's actually 10 tropical races that have formed around the parts of the equator. Okay, and these 10 tropical races, let's just start in the Americas. You have the Red Indian, you have the Aztec, which may be the same people. Then you have the Mayans, the Incas. You have the African blues. They're not blacks, they're blues. You have the around the Mediterranean, the Rasul. And so the blues were the Suleiman. You have the Rasul. And then you have the around India, the Hindustan. This is Narakasul, and then you have the Peking, the Pole Kings, which are Chinese today. You have below Hindustan, you have the not the Aboriginal, basically the Hawaii and Polynesian races, and then you have the 10th one is the Australian Aboriginal. Okay, so these are the 10 tropical kingdoms. Okay, and during this time, you have in this ice time, this is where humans in the north evolved from brown skin, brown haired, brown eyes, to developing the pale skin, the white skin, the blue eyes, the green eyes, the blonde hair, the red hair. And this is over the course of millions of years, right? Because you take a bunch of tropical bronze skinned people, how many generations of, I don't know, I'm in California, how many generations of Mexicans do you have to put in a hole in the ice before they turn blonde? It's going to take a long time, right? We're not talking 10 generations, 1,000 generations. We're talking millions of generations here. And that's basically what you had for the duration of this ice time. Okay. Before I go on, do you have any questions or anything you want to ask about all that?
I mean, I think this is very interesting.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What year did Ior Bock write the Bock Saga? Or when did he start writing?
In fact, Ior Bock was illiterate. He never went to school. He could barely read. He could barely do math. His entire childhood was.
Question would be, when was it published first?
Again, it was never published. He just told a small group of friends in Goa, India, in 1984. So 40 years ago this year. Yeah.
40 years.
Yeah. Some of the original storytellers are still around. I'm hoping to keep them around for quite a bit longer. Got to keep them healthy.
No, he died tragically. Like his assistant stabbed him in bed or something.
Yeah, it's there's a good documentary on it. There's an attempted murder on his life, and then someone the same guy who did the attempted murder was somehow in the life of the next guy who ended up actually doing the final stabbing to death. Yeah, the first attempted murder left him paralyzed, so he can no longer stand and walk around. Yeah,
but the one that actually killed him, that guy took care of him while he was ill for like years and years, because while he was paralyzed, right?
Yep. Yeah, and there's some, and he actually is in the video it's a video you can look up on YouTube. It's called "Who the Hell is Ior Bock?" And he's one of the main characters in this documentary. And it's a little unclear, like what the heck was going on. To me, it sounds like he was drugged or, had like a psychotic state. And, he did something that he deeply regrets. Very fascinating. And, these guys were let out of prison pretty quickly when it's a pretty serious crime in Finland to do something like that. But the whole thing is fishy. Yeah, I think it's still on YouTube. I'm getting a message. Maybe it's not, but
yeah, no, it is. It is. Let's see.
And there's another one that's like the making of. There's like a cutscene. Who the hell is Ior Bock? Too. Yeah, that's it right there. Bock Saga. Who the hell is Ior Bock?
Yeah, I'm not gonna like play all of it, but if you want to find it on YouTube,
Yeah, it's over an hour long. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, well, yeah, just over an hour. It is still on YouTube. It's actually quite a recent movie.
Yeah, a lot of the they've done a great job. You know, after he passed away, it's like the way to preserve this story. You know, one of the English storytellers, Jim Chesner. You know, that's kind of whose videos I really dove into and watched everything with his name in it.
Yeah, he seems the one that pops up to the most.
Yeah,
when
he passed away during COVID. He passed away not too long ago. He passed away before I even learned of the saga myself.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. But yeah. So after the we covered the first Ragnarok, which is ice time. Atlantis. I love it. That was one of the big things. Like when you hear Atlantis and a reasonable explanation of what the hell that word even means, right? That it's not an actual location, it's a time period. So when you think about this word history, right? It's his story, right? We can be in the same place, in the same room, doing the same thing, but have two totally different experiences or explanations of what the heck just happened in this room, right?
Yeah.
So you also get I'm sure it's possible that there are these capital cities of maybe during this time that we call Atlantis, that was happening in some of the tropical kingdoms. Who's to say? I don't know. I find it kind of hard to believe that I think it was, the knowledge of this system of how to make people properly in line with nature, the knowledge that was all encoded in the languages and everything was lost and trapped in the ice. So I feel like any mythologies that are coming out of this ice time from the tropical kingdoms are just a big long game of telephone. And eventually, once they were reconnected, so now let's fast forward. Now we're getting to what we call the second.
Like isn't any like oral mythology or any story that is passed down orally, isn't that just like a generational game of telephone?
I would say most cases maybe, but I think it's in the allegory of stories or books or something that you can put the most truth in, right? I think this is kind of how like the Bible or the Torah or the Quran or the Epic of Gilgamesh or the Emerald Tablets of Thoth or the Egyptian Books of the Dead. These are all written in allegory, right? The Egyptians had there's tons and tons of like bureaucratical, like straightforward, this guy is making this transaction, very straightforward kind of text. And then you get these other ones like the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Now it's all allegory all over again. And then now we're looking at this hindsight of 2020. You're like, oh, these must be literal. Wow, what the heck was going on? All these gods and everything. But it's written in allegory. The difference is the Bock Saga is based in the sound system. So like I was saying in the beginning, you can verify the entire story in the words that we still have in all of our languages, and specifically the root language. And if there's more to understand about a single concept, you look to the Von language, which is the Finnish language. And it was with these two languages that the English language was constructed. So English language is one of the oldest languages on the planet. Okay. And it's a very old language. It came out of ice time, and it's been further encoded, maybe grammatically, and it's absorbed a lot of other languages since then. But its original roots are the root language and the Vonner language. So it's a combination of these two languages, and you can find words in English that are reflecting both of these languages. I'm a big fan of the English language, but personally, and English language gets a lot of hate, like it's a demonic language or something like. I don't know what the heck they're talking about, because there's no real words that people can actually use to not describe Bock Saga. Because even what I'm finding is when we're asking questions like, oh, what's an alien, right? You can actually go into the root language and find out exactly what the heck it actually is, right? Or, you know, all the different concepts of the spirit and the soul and everything, it's all explicit in the language itself, right? And I think it's one of those concepts like, if we don't have the words for it, is it even a thing, right? Like, I was thinking about this the other day. Have you heard like when the Americas were first being like when the ships were just first coming across the sea, and like the tribal people couldn't even see the ship, even though it was right there on the horizon, but they couldn't see it because they didn't have a concept of what a ship was, right?
Yeah.
You heard this? Okay. And so what happened was, what they did understand is the water and the waves and the ocean, right? And so these tribal elders actually noticed a difference in the pattern of waves, of how they were hitting the shore. They saw the change. And so then they knew something was out there. And it was only the tribal elder who can actually see the ship on the horizon, right? They're the first ones of the comprehension, but they didn't have words for it. So it's like once we create the words are like casting the spell of reality or something like that. You know, it's kind of hard to describe, I guess. I don't know if I'm doing a great job, but you know, all these
listen, even in a lot of the other religious stories, right? In Norse mythology, like Odin spoke things into existence. Some of the other giants and gods spoke things into existence, right?
Yeah.
In
like you can even find that you can even find it in the Bible. You know, first there was the Word.
Well, yes, and then Adam and Eve's first job was naming animals, giving them spoken names.
Yes.
So
in this story, it's exactly the same, except the first thing that was described was the human body. So this root language is the anatomical language of the planet. So every part of the body, down to the most minute detail, has a word, right? And now you look at a rose, the plant, and you're like, that looks like this thing down here, right? And so you create these names based on anatomical names, okay? This is how the root language was constructed, but it's very simple. It's a very simple language. It's like Swedish today, except pronounced with a fit. Anyway, but Swedish is the closest in writing to this root language. And Finnish is the closest in pronunciation of these words. So it's actually, you can...
which is interesting because they are two entirely different languages.
But they're not. So they look like that to us because we don't speak those languages, but the Finnish language is constructed from this root language. So the Finnish language is very interesting because you can take each individual parts, and like you could take that 15-letter word you're looking at that is like incomprehensible to most of us. Like if you have ever seen the Finnish language written down, it's really overwhelming. I got like this.
Lots of consonants too.
I mean, I'm trying my best. I struggle constantly, but you know, I'm getting words here and there. But it is
words with 21 letters and only one consonant or one vowel. Excuse me.
Which one?
Some of them. I said there's some Finnish words that have like 21 letters in them, but there's only like one vowel in the whole word. Like I've seen a bunch of Finnish words. They're like, look how ridiculous some Finnish words look, and they're like a half a page or a half a line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The
writing system for Finnish was developed much later. It was actually developed with when they were finally conquered by the church, basically, and you know, the royalty of the church is basically the first thing written in Finnish was the Bible. You know, so. And they give them a lot of credit for actually being able to write the language down. But what's unique about it is each mark has one sound in this root language, okay? And then it is based off the sound mostly, right? And each sound has a specific meaning. There's actually 29 different sounds in this root language, and there's no other language that has 29 different sounds. It's always less, okay? Same thing with the complexity of making the alphabet in the ring. There's no other alphabet that was written with that kind of complexity, or with the associated with the sounds. Hebrew is probably one of the most complex languages I've ever looked at, and been able to kind of get a grasp of what it's actually describing. And it's definitely not what people who speak Hebrew think it's describing. Anyway, let's just get back to this separation. So we have this ice time now. Now about 10,040 years ago, 11,040 years ago, no, 10,040 years ago, the ice started melting just enough, where the ice caps, northern Finland, all through northern Europe, started sliding south. Okay, and it is in this time where it was basically carving out all the land, and the Osser that were still living in this area of Helsinki, or Uudenmaa today, saw this destruction coming, and so they fled for 1,000 years. They lived on the island in the middle of the North Sea, Gotland, which is part of Sweden today, and they lived there for about 1,000 years. And Gotland comes from goat, which is Bock, so this is still the Bock Saga. Yeah. And a lot of the stones from northern Finland, for example, were pushed down, and that's where you get your country Estonia, because all the stones from Finland were pushed down into Estonia. And there's still a lot of megalithic stones up in Finland, some doing some pretty incredible balancing acts. There's hundreds of them all over the place, and they're like, and people, you know, look at it like, oh, this is just natural from the Ice Age. This is just an Ice Age stone, but they're in positions, they're on ley lines. There's some interesting things going on with those, and stones are kind of one of those things that do last those, 50 million, 100 million years. So this might be, in my opinion, some evidence of this paradise time and ice time and things like that. Probably more paradise time, because once the ice was over there, there's just not much happening. Now we're at 9,000 years ago, 1,000 years on this island of Gotland, and now they're able to leave the island, and they have this story. They know the history of the world. Okay, now we're talking millions of years in the ice. Now they're blonde hair, blue eyes, blonde hair, red hair, green eyes. So this group of people, these 10 brothers. So remember, we said there's 12 brothers and 7 daughters. These 10 brothers went to reconnect with the 10 tropical kingdoms, and so they wanted to rebuild and reconnect with their lost family from a long time ago, and rekindle this offering system and this children making system with the 10 tropical kingdoms. This is where you get your myths in America of Quetzalcoatl, your bearded dude on a serpent ship, or riding a serpent, which is your Viking serpent ship or your Phoenician serpent ship. Same difference. You get this in Hindustan. You get this on all 10 tropical of this reconnection with.
Now you say that you were making a comment earlier about the natives in Northern America seeing the ships, and not understanding them. In South America, they saw ships in the shape of serpents, and said that a dragon carried 2 dragons carried a man onto the shore. Now picture the old Viking ships with the double sails, right in the middle. They had the 2 triangular sails with the dragons on them.
Sir.
They understood the serpent, right? So they see the serpent floating up to the shore, and a golden-haired, golden-skinned dude gets off the boat. Big golden beard. None of them got facial hair. They're like, yo, what the fuck is that?
I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
The Viracocha and the Viracocha. Now, if you look at the description of Tlaloc and his arrival, Tlaloc is also just about the same type of arrival. Comes in off the water, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there is a lot of... Yes,
if you see this coming at you, like especially with a hat like that and a couple of those, big bronzed burly dudes. I mean,
I was telling you, once we get to this time period, you're going to start making all the connections here. Okay, so we're getting there, and so this is very early on. This is just there's only one white race. Now we're going to get into. Now we're talking about 11 total races. Okay, so each tropical kingdom has an all-father that's his own individual art form. He has his own form. He has his own kind of dick head, and he has his own he's making all of the children. You can find this in many of the mythologies. If you look into like the Hindustan mythology, which is like the Narakasul, you have this guy Krishna who comes down, and just remember these king names are titles. Okay, so his firstborn son becomes the next all-father and / king in these kingdoms, and so he gets the name Narakasul. So these kings can live thousands and thousands of years because it's just a title. It's not that they're actually living these long lifespans that are said in all these ancient texts, because it is a title. And just a note that these titles, just like many last names are reflecting someone's their father's trade, like Miller or something like that, right? This is the same kind of thing. Our titles were our duty and responsibility to our communities, to provide this service or provide this to our community. So this is before money. This is before the separation, and these caste systems were still very much in place in these king systems. The main thing that changed is that instead of having an all-father at the top of the planet, you have 10 different all-fathers, right? And then now you have...
I'm telling you, this, you really must read the Urantia. It is so similar to what you're breaking down right now. Like the single race breaking down into what the Urantia, it's like one race breaks down into 3, and then from 3 to 6. So there was 10 total. And I think that's the math on it, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a long time since I looked into it. But it's
3 to 6. Yeah, that makes 10.
It literally describes them as like these people being the Australian Aborigines, and these purple people being these, and these blue people being these, and these yellow people being these. It is absolutely absurd if you go through it. And I think the Adamic race, the original, I think may have either been the blue or the purple, right? But they were big. They were larger, like Titan style, right?
Yeah.
And then like over time, when they broke down into 3 races, those immediately started getting smaller because they were interbreeding with the common man. And there was like a group of men that had splintered off and started breeding on the side of where their land was. You must read it, dude. I'm telling you, it's like,
I love it.
As you're going through this, it's like hitting parallel after parallel after parallel. It's crazy.
I love it. Yeah, that dude, my mind's been blown like every single day for like a year and a half with the Bock Saga. It's insane because like you can go into every word and it's telling a whole saga in of itself. Each word is telling its own story, and yeah, that's fascinating. I got to check that out for sure.
I mean, like the one going into the 3, like you have that in like the let's call it basic Norse German mythology as well. The Ymir, then the 3 brothers. I don't know who the.
Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Okay.
Okay. So now we're around 9,000 years ago now. Okay. So I actually don't know the time frame or if there is a specified one, but from this highest family, from the Osir, there are 2 brothers that had no title of children maker. And these 2 brothers, one was Sven and one was Dan. Maybe the tribe of Dan, I don't know. But Dan is where we get Denmark from. Denmark. Mark means land. Okay. And in this land, he started his own family tree. Okay. And from this family tree, someone say something?
Tuatha De Danann. The Tuatha De Danann, the gods of the north. The tribe of Danu.
Yes.
Anyways, go ahead.
After about this 1,000 years, they were able to go back to Helsinki. It was called Helsing. It was just hell. It didn't get the name Helsinki till about 1550, and so they stayed there up until about 1050. This original Osser people, and so all of the Osser people, the original ones, the Finnish, the Helsinki, that's your first race of white people. Okay, now you have this Dan line, and this Dan line is all of your Denmark, Germany, Switzerland, all the way to England. So this is all the second race of white people. This is where all your Germanic people, yeah. And then and the German is just like a title that the Roman Catholics, I think, gave them.
Yeah, means screaming,
as opposed to their own name. And then you have the Sven line. This is where we get the name Sweden. Sven, right? And Sven started his own family tree, and he branched off. So it's all Sweden, Norway, Scotland, Ireland, Iceland, Greenland. This is the Sven line. So now we have 3 white races. Now we have 10 tropical races, 13 total, and that they all still exist today. So that's all of that in a big fat nutshell.
Yeah. The Bock Saga is intense. Have you done a podcast with Narco Longo and Juan?
I personally have not, but I do follow them.
They just did one the other night, and I know he's done like 5 or 6 of them. Yeah. I watched that one. Pretty good one too. But I've watched a couple of the different things he's done on the Bock Saga also. And he's had some people on that were like pretty in tune. I didn't know if you had been on there yet with him.
No, I haven't. No, he's not. What separates me a lot from a lot of the people who. Yeah, go ahead.
I missed something at the beginning, Dustin. I've been wanting to ask you the circular thing that you pulled out at the beginning. What was that? Because I missed the explanation of that. I mean, I caught you talking about it.
Yeah, so that's all of the Bock Saga kind of is based off this ring, and those are it's showing the 29 different sounds. If you want to pull it up again, Stein, I can kind of do a brief overview. A part 1 to this show, I go letter by letter, but if you zoom in there and if you look closely, I'm sorry, what's your name? Ash? Jay?
Yeah, Josh or Ash, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Ash is an awesome name. So if you look at the top, kind of like at 1 o'clock, you got A, B, C, and then you keep going around. You got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S. So you got A, Osser, B, A, Bay, Say, Day, Ek, If. Anyway, all the way around. So and each sound, each mark represents a specific sound, one sound, not like in English where we have these combination sounds, and they're switched up quite a bit in English, and it's telling it's an actual rhyme. W is not a sound or a letter.
You have 2 words explaining a single letter that's supposed to be a single phonetic
and that
sound.
Letter, and if you think about it, it doesn't actually make a phonetic sound.
I never understood that about the English language, like why there was such a long explanatory name for the letter. why not just call the letter by the sound it makes?
It doesn't
like,
make a
why
sound.
would the letter? Yeah, but I understand that. But like, why would you complicate the matter by calling the letter WW instead of just calling it WA?
The French do it even worse. Like,
you get what I'm saying, right? Like,
I mean,
instead of giving the entire alphabet each one names, why not just call each one by its phonetic
the
sound?
French have it even in their numerical system. Like 90 for them is, if I'm not mistaken, at least it's been only 14 years since I last used my French.
Jubilee.
No, yeah, that's the W, but like 90 in their numerical system is 90. So they're literally, yeah, so 4 times 20 plus 10.
Yeah, the W is it's not a real sound because you can't actually make the W sound without the use of a vowel. So you can say wah, but now you're just saying a, ah. Right, you can't, or it's an ending. So it doesn't actually have a sound, and in most cases, or most often the cases, it's just actually a V, and like say in the root language. So if you go back to this root language, which is best understood in the beginning as like Swedish writing, not the pronunciation so much. But how Swedish is written, you can kind of get to these the core sounds, and knowing the sounds be, say is an S, so it's not really even anyway. But say, day, ek, a, or e is a.
Don't do it.
Instead of a is e
Yeah,
is
sounds
a.
very.
And
that
then
sounds very much like the Dutch alphabets, like very much how we would pronounce it.
It's preserved better in most other languages than English. Like I is E, and then O is oo. Like you make a O with your lips too. Whereas if you loosen the bottom of your jaw like a U, then you get oo, oo, oo. And these are very distinctly different sounds. And if you want to go to the digital one, Stein, one of the Bockanologists put this together digitally, and it's really cool. And he is placing the outside letters. So now we get the whole entire alphabet sound system in one picture, which I went over the letters, but I didn't have them written down. So this is the same thing.
Sure.
This is the flower of life, right? And then you got X, Y, Z, O, and U. So that's the and I suck at this. Any Bock Saga people watching this are just probably laughing at me now, but but each mark has a symbol. Definitely go back to our first one with Stein, and I kind of break down each one individually, and
it made me curious. And then now that you've explained it, I was talking with him before, and I was asking the question, like, I always wondered why, like, old runes on runestones were written in circles, but all like modern languages are fucking vertical lines, or horizontal lines running vertically on the page. I never got that. Like, why?
I've seen someone recreate the runes using the Bock Saga alphabet, but he took his videos down, and it was just more of like a fast forward motion of him actually creating the runes using the different angles. This alphabet is created using the angles of the sun and the moon and the other planetary bodies to create the letters as well, or the numbers. So this thing is pretty intricate. It's not just the alphabet clock. It's also a clock. It's also a calendar. It's also the zodiac. It's also directions. It has north, south, east, west. and it has all of that built into one. And using geometric shapes of triangles or squares are inside the wheel or what form the words. And making the dang thing was really crazy because I couldn't make each letter without. So like it's basically made with a series of rings and lines, so poles and holes, just like it's quite simple, but then really, like when I say it fractals out, it's quite, it's fourth dimensional. It's toroidal to spherical to.
This is the one that we had to work with in the first episode.
That's my original one. And
it's not bad, like for let's call it a rough draft, if you will.
Well, what's nice about this one is it singles it out where you can see just the letters. So this one's cool because I erased all of the complexity behind it, and so it's very simple to follow. But I wanted to make this other one so you can actually see the complexity that goes into drafting this ring, this alphabet ring.
I mean, it's much appreciated that you did all that
it's
work.
Far more complex than any other language. It's far more. And I've looked at the Hebrew language quite a bit, and it's even the letters, the characters of the Hebrew alphabet are formed from a two-dimensional slice of a fourth-dimensional object of the toroidal field. Right, and looking at it in different angles using hand signals is what forms all of the Hebrew alphabet. It's quite complex, right? But it's still not anything close to how complex this language, this sound system actually is. But it's also quite simple, and that it's hard to wrap your head around, and it's hard for me to wrap my head around. Still, I'm still trying to understand it and pulling things out of it. Regularly,
I think English being a first language is a major disadvantage to people trying to learn a lot of other languages, especially like Latin languages and Romance languages and shit. It becomes like, I mean, I never really had a hard time with Spanish because it was like spoken so commonly around Florida, but like I've tried to learn like German or French, and it's just like nah.
Yeah, it's the sounds though, and so it's the sounds, and but what's interesting is about all these other languages, even Latin, about 40 to 60% of Latin is root. So
Old High language, Old English, and Old Norse were very similar. Those three languages were like almost like all three of them stemmed from a base language, right? Old English didn't sound much like English now. It sounds more like Old German, High German, should I say. Old High German, excuse me. That the more proper way to word it would be Old High German. Anyways,
it does. And even in Switzerland, like Swiss or Austrian, it's like German, but it's not German. But they can. With very little effort, perfectly, understand each other. It's kind of like Dutch and Flemish and Afrikaans.
Yeah, and many of the words that, but I want to push back because I think English is fucking awesome. Okay, and I didn't really understand how awesome it was until diving into the Bock Saga because. Trying to understand this root language is English has a massive lexicon, and we have maybe 4 or 5 times more words than the next largest language, and it's like this amalgamation of all the other languages, and it's actually through the writing of English that we can kind of cipher the other the correct pronunciations of words often. Or it tells us that we're actually saying our words incorrectly based off the spelling, and sometimes they're both wrong. And we can find this out by comparing it to the root language and this Vaughn language.
If you break down most languages, like none of them really make sense. In English, for example, the thing that pops into my mind is the silent letters. You have knight, like, knight in shining armor, and knight, like, well, it is here now. In Dutch, school, or school, as we say it, you hear the hard G, so you expect a like SGOOL. No, like we spell it the same as you, like SCHOOL, but it's a SG sound. But at the same time, the CH is also sh, which is more like a SJ sound. But if you were to write it down, you would write it down as SH, not SJ. It's just
you're tapping into what's really important about it, is that it does, the phonetics are the most important part. How we actually say the words is the most important part. And in English, it does make sense that we have a lot of these silent letters or these fake spellings, because we have the same pronunciation for a lot of words that are different meanings. So when we're writing it, we want to be able to say what we're actually referring to. If we say to, right, am I talking about the number? Am I talking about also? Am I saying like going to and from? And so it's important to have these different spellings. But at the same time, often what I've found when like I study the root language and this Von language, is that they're actually intentionally hiding something, and that's worth looking into, right? I think like your example of night with the K, or actually the biggest example is in the word knowledge, right? That's with a K in the beginning, and it's like, there's something there. They're hiding something, that it actually does begin with an N, and that is a core word in the root language. Is the N? It does represent knowledge, and it's North Starna, so it's the knowledge of the North Star.
I believe even in Old English, like the K in front of it, like it doesn't exist. Like night was spelled NIGHT, and knowledge was spelled just NOW.
Yeah, and if you go into like Swedish, for example, it's just like rider, like a rider. It just means like to ride a horse. A horse rider. And then the same thing with the word dragon, right? The word dragon actually comes from dragoon, which is a knight, which is someone who's riding a horse. So
German is even fucking crazier. Like, favorite example that I have of German is the German word for ice skating. Like here in the Netherlands, we call it schaatsen. But the Germans call it Schlittschuhlaufen, which if you were to translate it literally means
shoe laughing.
No, like
say that again.
It means Schlittschuhlaufen, if I'm not mistaken. It means something like.
In Swedish, it's skridskoåkning.
Yeah, but if you were to translate it literally, it means something along the lines of gliding shoe walking.
Yes.
Because that's what an ice skate is. Like, it's
a
shoe.
And that makes the most sense, honestly. Doesn't that make more sense?
Yeah.
I don't know.
A gliding shoe. Well, yeah, I guess. It does.
So playing around with
it describes what you see.
Yeah. So
he's walking on gliding shoes.
Can I say that, like, so in this root language, because each sound, right? You said a whole bunch of different sounds in a row to make syllables. One syllable is multiple sounds. Sometimes in English, an I is I-E. It's two letters. It's two sounds, right? That's how you would spell it in Dutch. And then so it expands into a bigger word to make more of a meaning. So what this root language, or what the sound system as described in the Bock Saga is doing, is it's helping us break these words into their smallest parts to get their true original meaning, the origin, right? And generally, it comes to originates from the anatomy, and it makes a lot of logical sense. You can break down almost any word and find, to its true meaning in all of these different languages. So like just your example of ice skating in German, that's actually much closer to its root than English, right? So now we're playing with two different branches off this original tree.
What I don't understand is, like, it says the Minoan culture existed 9,000 years ago, but you could ask Google what language the Minoan people speak, and it says English. I never understood that, right? You have this island in the middle of Greece, and they said they weren't Greek. The Minoans were distinctly not Greek, right? Because they had different gods or whatever, and like a very distinctly different burial rituals and culture and descriptors and all that. So, like, but I always thought they were just like the pre-Greeks. But anyways, from like what I heard as
Crete,
a kid,
right? Because they were on the island of Crete.
Yes.
The Minoans, King Minos.
Yes.
Minus. Yeah,
the one that had a bull head sewed onto a human body.
Yeah, the island of Crete is very ancient, and this goes back to Paradise time as well. And it is the very significant island because dividing the island of Crete in half does separate the east and west. And it wasn't until much later that our time is actually off by 1 hour. The whole world, they moved like the dividing line or the zero line. This was the original zero line. Now it's in like Greenwich, England, I think. But this is a very significant place, and I can't expand on that too much more. But they were based off gnosis, right?
Pretty much.
Gnosis. This is like the knowledge,
That's kind of where it came from. They had the knowledge-based thing. And it's said that they may have been one of the Atlantean cultures because they had like the Therianthropic, the Minotaur, all the gods, the people with the animal heads going on.
Mean is mind, like a meme or like a mind. That's menos, and os is like meno.
The funny thing too is if you look at the time frame, they were in the last age of Taurus. Now we're coming into the next age. We're the dawning of the age of Aquarius. We're like coming into Aquarius still. We're not like fully into it, but we're coming into it, right?
I don't know.
We're like, I guess, more in Aquarius than we are in Pisces right now. I think
we are. I think we've entered.
There's some discussion whether we are already or still have to, make the full shift.
In the last age of Aquarius were when the last global flood was. So I'm just saying, if you follow the horoscope or not the horoscope, the astrological calendar, look at the Leo, the last time of Leo, and that they found that lion head man carving in Germany, right? And there were like other depictions of lion-headed people of that time, and some of the earlier Greek gods even were depicted as like wearing lion heads or defeating lions.
That's a Leo is a root language word. Leo, lay means to smile, and is Udin. So it's the smile of Udin is Leo, and it's ruled by the sun.
A question: what about the word dig? Because that word is
D-I-G?
Think about this throughout humanity, that word would have been handed down from person to person to person because it's one of the most basic things that every human will have to see another human do somewhere, sometime.
Well,
it is just one of those things.
In root language, it would be grav, like grave, grav, or peak, like a pickaxe, peak. Yeah. There's a bunch of different ones. Dig. dig, but dig. I have to think about it, but yeah, I don't see it in any words in Swedish here. But
and now, if you look up the runes,
but there are words that are preserved in every language, and this is how you know they're root words. Like every culture for the woman's little tour, the clitor, her little heart, the clitoris is that's maintained in every language. Or the word ma or mother, mama. You know, every culture uses mama. Or the Maya, and this is like the highest mother, the Maya. This is in Bock Saga as well. You know, Maori to Malay. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, in most languages, it's pa or da for the beginning of the father, right?
Yeah.
And many languages, I don't know about any of the Asian ones, but I know in many of the other languages, especially from the Sanskrit forward, it's like ma for mother.
Yeah, you just remind me too, because when I was describing the word paradise, it said pa radius et, paradiset, et means one, radius, you know, you have this ring, a radius, and pa means pole, but it also can be also read as the time before the ice. So para was like before the ice.
Well, the father plus one, you're one ring outside of the father.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah. And
one ring outside of the father.
Yeah, it's fascinating because you go into the sound system. The other thing about other languages too is there's many ways to describe something, right? Like you can just, if you're to describe a tree, right? There's a specific reason why it's called tree in root, you know, or we use the letter 3. It's closely related to tree, right? But also it's also can be described as shade cover, right? Maybe another culture used trees to be out of the sun, right? And so their words for tree, when you break their languages down, is more describing shade, right? Or something like that. It could be describing it any normal way, any sort of ways. Like it could be describing it as the thing that they use to make houses or something like that, the homemaker or something like that. And so you're getting these different words to describe the same thing, right? Like same thing with dig. I have to think about that one or look into it a little bit more. But
the reason
you know, they would be digging for different reasons, you know.
No, the reason that I asked that word in particular is because I was looking at it before, and I was looking at some of the earliest symbols ever found carved into caves that are like distinct symbols. And as from 25,000 years ago forward, if you look at the runes, the Germanic runes currently for Norse runes for Dagas, Isa, and Gibo, the X, the single line, the up and down, and the Dagas rune is like a sideways hourglass. Those symbols have been carved into caves for 25,000 plus years, or painted, or whatever, right?
Okay,
and
I got something.
I was just like,
oh, the dig in root means you, or the you.
No shit.
Which is interesting. Yeah,
that's crazy. But now, what do we? Since modern age, what is our funerary practice in many cultures? To bury the family, the ancestors near the family tree, or in the family grove, or the sacred grove. So, well, in lands that weren't frozen, anyways. Excuse me.
Yeah, that is that's. I love that. We're going to definitely explore that one in our Bock Saga channel, because that's a big thing, right? Digging and to put your life into the ground for the tree, so you be leaf. You know, you become the leaf. So this is your belief system, and digging is an integral part of that. Right, integral in the tree, integral, gall. You know. Anyway, But yeah, great. G for
When I buy-
ground, and then all for all. So all the integral.
I want to bring back. I'm literally ordained, so I could do this and literally consecrate a piece of land, and pull the whole process off. But I'd have to purchase the land and the whole 9 yards. And my wife and I have big plans on like moving forward as soon as she finishes school down here, because she's already like paid for everything and all that. We're moving north, and once we get there, I am going to basically consecrate a sacred grove, and I want to be burned under the oak that I plant there after it is grown, and that is the family tree. And bada bing, the sacred grove is born again, and the funerary practice is brought back. Right, at least in my family and on my land. Right.
Yes.
So I want to bring that back because I have not seen it anywhere, and that was a thing until Christianity. Right. Until the Christians raided Germany, right, or the northern lands, if you will. Starting with the Etruscans, by the way, it was the first people they conquered were their literal ancestors, right? Because Rome was founded by Romulus and Remus, who were literally freaking Etruscans. They were the sons of Mars. Mars and Tyr were the same person, right? And the Etruscans were the Tersenians. So their neighbors to the north were their fathers. They turned around 300 years later, crossed that mountain range again and said, oh shit, who are you? I don't know, who are you? And they went to war, right? And it's just one of those weird things. Like you look at Rome and the Etruscans, and then the Etruscans being wiped out by Rome, and it's like, how the hell did that even happen? One culture fathered the other, and then literally got wiped out by them.
Isn't that also a thing that comes back in the story of Ragnarok, like fathers fighting against their sons, or that comes back in pretty much like any apocalyptic?
Yeah, I think that comes later as the northern tribes were being these northern Ulster tribes are being conquered throughout history.
Speaking of Ragnarok, I speaking of that real quick, I was reading something the other day. Now, see, when I read the Eddas and whatnot, I've also read like a lot of the English text and like the English translation of the Hoxbach and the Codex Regius, the original, and all of the stuff that the Eddas were based off of for the most part. And the like at least the Havamal and the majority of the Eddas came from the Codex Regius, right? And a lot of the other little poems were found in other places but fit within it, like perfectly in sync. So the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda like are stories, and I would say the Poetic Edda is more an after story to the Prose Edda, the hero sagas and all that stuff. And but I've read all of the other texts around it, like the Danish and like all of that other stuff too. So like when I'm looking at it, like all of these other bells and whistles kick off when I'm looking at one story, right? And then it ties all of those things together. So when you're going through this, it's like a mind fuck for me, because I've gone through the Urantia before and then gone through like Norse mythology and like from the blue people to finding out there's actually blue people that descended from fucking Hungarians living in America, like to this very day. The Blue Fugates, this like big family in the Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia area, but their skin was literally blue. And the funny part is they were mudblood, right? Their blood was brown because of like some kind of like methylene deficiency or some crap like that. It's like this weird story, but like it's all factual, dude.
I've heard I've heard two explanations of blue. So one in the Bock Saga is these very very dark skin, the African dark skin that becomes almost glistening blue colored. And the other explanation is the exact opposite, where they're so pale that their veins are showing. They look blue because they're so, you can see almost translucently through their skin to these blue veins.
The Blue Fugates, the family from Virginia, Kentucky, and such, They are their description of them was quite literally, their skin looks as blue as the waters of lake such and such, and it was like this like really sapphire blue lake, right? And then their hair was either blood red or white as snow, right? And
Yeah.
I guess there was
I think that
bunch
goes
of
more back
time we
to the
found-
second explanation. Yeah.
But like any
Now their
type of
descendants come from Hungary, where the Gokturks were, who were described as the Blue Turks. So that just really trips me out, because that's also where the story of the Jotun come from, because the Gokturks actually came from Siberia.
So,
There's
there's some Bock Saga. So you have a couple. I hope I don't get this wrong. But it's kind of the same difference if you're talking about this Sven line or the Finnish line. But they came down. This is post second Ragnarok. This is after the Ice Age. So this is within the last 9,000 years of them coming, and as they try to reestablish these different king systems with the North Pole, they were mixing with these either the Peking or the Hindustan or the Rasul or the Suleiman or the other ones, but there are specific names. So, for example, like the Hindustan the Peking and this Finnish line, they called themselves the Tartars. And then so you can say Aryan, right? So these are northern, and then you have but they were called the Mongols, the Moon Gauls, the Moon Gaelic Moon, yeah.
and we were speaking a little about the Minoans and the Minoan bull. Like, he was trapped in Tartarus, wasn't he? Tartarus, Titans.
Yeah, the world under Crete, the underworld, basically. Tartarus was their underworld. He was trapped in the labyrinth.
The deep abyss that is used as a dungeon of torment and suffering for the wicked, and as the prison for the Titans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also that's where they tried to break the Titans out of.
There's a couple other civilizations that were coming from this mixing with these Ossers from the North Pole. From the Bock Saga story.
Think about that saying that the Titans are in the underworld, right? And in the Ragnarok story, it says that the Jotun, the female and the children, when Ragnarok kicked off, returned to the ground. They sank back into the earth, right?
Which is also kind of the hollow earth theory, said that, the giants, they live, in a cave the hollow earth. Sorry. Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a big thing in Bock Saga too.
With all those underground cave systems, the earth is practically hollow. So
this is a big Bock Saga thing that can maybe clarify all of that. You want to hear it?
Yeah, let's do that. As a final thing, because it's been a long day. Been a long day of work for me, and I have to be up early again tomorrow. I did this pretty last.
Okay,
minute,
well then, before the last thing, going back to the dig, right? In root language, it's grava, right, which is grave, right? So their word for dig. Their use for it was for digging a grave, just like you were saying. So
that's
backs it up. It's all backed up, right?
It's the same in Dutch, graven.
Yeah, and even breaking the word down, dig, D-I-G, right? D means like so like I is in, and D means like day, and or to drink, or to like consume, or to suck, and G means ground. So you're going into the ground, and being your life force is being drunk up. So using the sound system, you can break all these words down and get their specific meanings. That's really cool connection that you've made.
That is very, okay. Drinking into the ground. That is nuts.
Yeah, it's I think you'll really enjoy the first episode we did with Stein. I did with Stein because it really goes into the sound system there. That one I kind of wanted to do because there's not really as detailed of a breakdown of the alphabet out there on the internet. You kind of have to get it through osmosis of listening to the entire saga and everything. But the entire saga is based off the sound system, and then once you understand that, then you can go into these words like even this word grava, that A with the two dots above it stands for like agriculture or like tilling the ground. So, and then the at the end would be the osser. So this would be where the osser, grava, the V is for Vonner. So osser, Vonner in the ground. And then GR is your ground. And the raw, your life force or the sun rays going back into the ground. This is where the Osser and Vonner all go when you dig. So that's fascinating.
Some people in the Bock Saga group are like kind of chatting along. They're not on YouTube, unfortunately.
Guys, go on to YouTube and give this video a like for the algorithm.
I heard a really cool theory before we sign off because I do have to go to the Super Bowl starting and I want to watch it. Anyways,
let the show begin.
The family tree thing, right? This is no joke. I heard that the Scythians, some of the later groups of Scythians splintered off, and they had a tradition where the Scythians were like one of the first cannabis cultures that are like documented. Right. And I heard they had this tradition that they would literally have their ancestors buried beneath cannabis plants and then they would smoke them, bro. So you have the ultimate taking in of the family tree. Like, that is crazy. When you think about it, though.
That's a slight inversion that came later, probably, but yeah, the marijuana is a very sacred plant, and it
gives a new meaning from
its word can be traced back to baby palm tree.
It kind of looks like it, and it gives a whole new meaning to ashes to ashes.
Check this out. The palm tree gets its name from the palm of our hands because the original words are always anatomical.
Yeah. Oh shit!
Okay,
yeah.
Well, and then you could take away that M. Hey, you could take away that M in palm, and you get pal, right? Paul, right? And do you have a word for Paul? What's a Paul in Dutch? Do you have a word for that, Stein? In Dutch, Paul.
Your pal, yeah, your vriend.
No, Paul, like a piece of furniture. Like a stool.
No? Like a pole, a baal, Paal, baal, which is a pole. It's not really
a what? It's a pole, like a pole.
A pal, yeah, a pal.
Oh, okay. Well, in root, it's like a piece of furniture, but it's also a pal. A pal is your pal. This is for you to, this is for you to.
Hey, you want to hear something crazy? In Spanish, it's pala, and it means shovel. Get back to the digging.
Yes. Yeah. So this
is
your one of your good pals, right? This is your Angela and Pamela. Yeah. Our first girlfriends, right? But,
it's like a poker game. If you don't have a partner, better have a good hand.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, and that there's a lot in the actual contraption of the pipe. The pipes that are used are constructed differently for women and for men. But there's a whole lot of saga stories about marijuana, smoking pot, and its actual use. Maybe when you're fast forwarding to the Scythians, the Scottish,
let's keep that for next time. I know.
Quick aside though, the human body has an endocannabinoid gland system in it, right?
Yeah.
And this system evolved in us for longer than 10,000 years ago. So we've literally been consuming and had this plant next to us, this specific plant, for over 10,000 years.
Yes. Yeah. It goes back to paradise time. It is like if you look at it too, you look at the plant, it does look like a baby palm, and this is confirmed in the root language. And the root language kind of expands on all of the concept of marijuana, pot, I forget all the other names, ganja, but all these are ancient words as well. So that's confirming that they've actually been here millions of years, not just the 10,000s, right? But our recorded history only begins when we started writing. But everything before that, it's in our words, it's in our stories. But,
guys, I'm just gonna sign off and leave you guys to it.
My bad.
I'm okay with that.
If you want to, go ahead. I'll sign off in about 15 minutes, brother. Go ahead. If it's not inconvenient for you.
No, that's perfectly fine. But let's.
I wouldn't know how to end it. I guess we wouldn't have access to the button. But let's
end it on a viewers question. One of my newest subscribers, Alan Conrad. Thanks for watching, by the way. What do you guys think about the magical nature of the sperm in regards to how the sound system makes sense or understanding? So,
well, look at the tail as a vibrational wave, just like sound.
So that's again going back into the sound. So in the saga, it's explicitly saying that our soul. So you can think of the each individual sperm as an individual life, a little homunculus, each one, right?
Oh,
you can take one shot and put it in a million different women, and you get a million different babies. You get 2 of them go into one egg, you get 2 kids. 3 of them into one egg, you get 3 kids.
How does not do podcasts with Wand?
Oh, the homunculus podcast, that was absolutely brilliant.
I think he gets clowned on enough for that.
It's fucking interesting, as is this, by the way, but keep going.
It is. And he's got a deep knowledge on it.
Yeah. But check it out. So we live in this society, way we live today is we're shooting it out. We know that, Pornhub or what these websites are like the most frequented websites in the whole planet. And it's this whole taboo subject talking about, these sexual fluids, but it literally makes all of the life, right? This is the life water, right? And the sounds we make to form our languages, to describe and invent our reality on the spot, right? If
it's watery, you might want to eat a little more protein, but
it's encoded in each individual sperm, and our whole life is, right? The women, they have the energy in her G, right? The women have the egg, but we, the men, have the seed, the fruit, right? And it's in this seed that all of the life is encoded. And so I would just say people need to stop throwing it away, right? And however you want to do it. The saga does talk about this.
Save it in a jar and make your own homunculus.
Well, it's a living being, right? It's a living soul, right? And our soul, the sun is called Sulin. This is just the smile of the sun, right? And the sperma, this is the sun, right? It is our souls are in the sperm, okay? And how it connects to the sound system, it's in the Bock Saga, it is said that when you take it in, that it gets pumped into the blood and is one of the things that goes past the blood-brain barrier and enhances the mind. It is for the brain, is the life water. And in Saga, it's making a child is very ritualistic. It only happens once a year, right? We have sex all willy-nilly today, and with anyone who comes across and is willing, because we're so desperate.
This is very crudely portrayed, but this is like the kind of image that we all know. Like, doesn't this kind of look like like the sun, and it's like the solar flares and all? It's the image that we all know.
when we spill that without a partner there, right? There is no pheromonal connection, right? And every time that it's spilled naturally, with a partner, there's a pheromonal connection, a unity happening at the same time. You're giving and receiving, right? But when that is done by oneself, especially to somebody who is a porn addict, right? They are literally separating themselves from humanity because they're associating that with a digital picture, a digital image, rather than that connection, right? And it literally, their mind after, your mind after 21 times of doing something takes it on as a pattern, as a natural habit.
Something like that. Yeah.
We're draining our soul power if you're throwing it away. Simple as that.
Yes.
And people with these addictions and stuff of just throwing it away, that's you could probably see it. You wouldn't be surprised by someone tells you that they do that. If you look at them, you can probably tell that their face is probably more sunken, their eyes are tired or something like that, because they're draining themselves of their life force, their soul power, right? And in the very beginning,
very gray and dull, and
in the very beginning, right? It was when you start with two people, and the first one who's able to make more people, maybe his offspring weren't as powerful of soul power. And then the more you divide it, it gets more and more divided and weaker. So in this old system, the men from this lower caste, the trail class, they weren't making people because they didn't have strong enough soul power within them. It was already, you got 100%, 50%, 25, 12.5% all the way down here. But the women still have the energy to produce. And so it was through the system that humanity built up their soul power to make more people. And isn't that the purpose of life, is to reincarnate ourselves, right? This is reincarnation, is making this next generation and having a good high gene. You want to have a high gene, and it's in the words, it's in the words that this has been tabooed and through religion and the downloading this false matrix of the lives we live, and we are forced to live under today. But by doing things like you were saying, Ash, of planting your own tree and starting your own family tree and system like that, I think going back in our own individual lives and going back to some of these sacred things that are have been passed down, through the oral tradition of the Bock Saga, explains lots of these things of what we can do and implement in our own lives today, starting, and heal humanity for generationally.
We're in the information age, and that goes back to porn too. We're in the information age, right? And we have the access to look at what our ancestors did, who our ancestors were, do a DNA test, find out what regions they came from, what cities they lived in, and you know what I mean? Follow our family trees back generations beyond what we were capable of, you know what I mean, before like certain cultures clashed and records were destroyed and blase. So, I mean, through this, we have the ability to literally research the history of our family's soul back to its root. And instead, the most frequent use for a cell phone is pornography. Literally scrolling Pornhub, Xvideo, and one other porn site, OnlyFans now. So it's like getting to be an absurd era in humanity when people can disassociate from society, pull away. They have no need to make human connections because they have no need to go out and try to get a partner. So they become so antisocial that when it's time for them to go out in public, they're like panic stricken. I mean, we're in a broken age of people, dude.
That's how you create a generation of incels.
Well, I think a lot of people are very lost, and even all of us in this, I don't know, truther community. I don't want to call it that. Whatever, this the seekers, right? There's a
Sure.
lot more seekers
Seekers
right,
of knowledge.
today. Seekers,
People
right?
who-
We're
researchers.
seeking, yeah, you know, researching, seeking, and I think when we find these things and then try to like decode them or something like that, or we find these things, but I just love the Bock Saga, man. It's just like the answers are all there. It's in the words that we're actually using. And what I'm finding is like so we have this Bock Saga channel, which is where I know Stein from, right? And people will come in and ask these questions, and then I can take their question and break down the words within it to answer their own question.
Yeah.
Very precisely and in a lot of detail, right? And so this system of knowledge, of passing down the knowledge, right, like was already in the words and in our languages that we're using, right? And the knowledge is already there. It's already been given to us. It's already been encoded, and it's not even that complicated, right? But we can't just go back, because basically all of society, this technological era, is so backwards from nature, you know? Whereas maybe in previous times we would all be sitting together around a fire telling stories, and that's how we would pass on the knowledge. And,
yeah, I mean,
you create something. You have a title. You have a duty. You know, if your last name is Shoemaker, you have a duty to make the best goddamn shoes anyone's ever seen. And that's because your father taught your father, and your grandfather taught him, et cetera, and so on and so forth. And everybody needs these damn things. And, you know, you go and trade, right? And now you tell stories, and this information gets disseminated, right? I always remember, like, growing up in high school, you know, there's these rumors, like before the internet came around, you get these rumors, like, what's that Marilyn Manson one? Everyone knows, like, Marilyn Manson removed his two ribs to suck his own dick, right? This was like, how did that rumor get around to every single person in the whole world, right? But it's started many of them on purpose. Yeah, well, fair enough, but you know, like these rumors spread because we are conversating. We're having dialogues, right?
Yeah.
And you know, in Buddhism, in Buddhism, it's like dialogue. With a dialogue, you can solve all of the world's problems. Or why do you think that they don't want us to hear from Putin, right? Or something like that. You know, it's like these dialogues, this diplomacy.
I've said
these things are
think
connected.
about this. Every other
they want to. Stein's dying dying of
I'm trying to wrap it up. I was trying to wrap it up nicely with a viewer question, but no, you guys.
It was a good question. It was a good damn question.
It was, but it led into so many other fucking rabbit holes. This keeps happening. So, you know, if you like rabbit holes,
the saga is really large. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you know, if you like rabbit holes and you know, like connecting rabbit holes and whatever, subscribe to the Greyhorn Pagans Podcast. We do nothing but explore rabbit holes.
Let's do it. Yes, and make sure you give this video a like, everybody. Leave a comment and share it with your friends. Yeah, and no shameless self-promotion from Stein. I'll do it for him.
To my wife, I love you.
Yeah, you know, let's get this kind of information out more and create more seekers out of people, you know. And the Bock Saga, I think, is a wonderful place to start, because there's not much woo-woo in it. It's very human. It's very human. There's not a lot of the concepts are not complicated symbols and things like that. Each symbol has a story, if there is a symbol, and you know, it's just representing another human, you know, that has a certain role. All the titles, all the names are roles that we're supposed to play. And so, you know, we're in a society that's very lost, but like you said, we're entering the age of Aquarius. This is where the information, everyone's getting flooded with all this information. Let's let the
year of the dragon. It's an interesting time for sure to be alive in.
Let's get people out of the clouds, bring them back down, and understand the earth we're standing on first, and then we can go into like more complex things of understanding. You know, let's understand our own roles, that we have a duty to play in society and in our own lives and for our family.
I'm being eaten
Cheers,
by
everybody.
mosquitoes. I got to run that.
Okay,
All right.
well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you all for coming on. Thank you all for watching. I'm just gonna close it off myself. Now that I
See ya, Kitty.
Yeah, Kitty co-host. He's he's always here, always wanting attention. But yeah, thank you to everyone who watched us live on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter. Thanks to everyone in the English Bock Saga group. Like, I know if some of you, are watching, but like are not actively on YouTube, but still, thanks for watching. Thanks for, sharing stuff in there as well. Dustin, thank you very much for coming on for part 2. Thanks, Josh, who, already left, for coming on as well, because I know he absolutely loves this shit. Yeah, go find out more stuff about the Bock Saga and start here on the Greyhorn Pagans podcast, because we did 2 parts already, so that's like 4 hours plus worth of information. Like the first one we did was also like 2 hours 10 minutes. So yeah, like that's close to 4.5 hours of information just about the Bock Saga itself, and we have so much more stuff on the Greyhorn Pagans podcast.
You have no clue. It's a big story, and thank you for having me, Stein.
Well, you're very welcome. It is indeed a big story, and a big story that should be told. So yeah, thank you all. I am gonna close it off here. I had no idea we were still gonna go for this long. It's 1 a.m. here.
I tried to warn you.
Yeah,
I did try to warn you beforehand. I was like, "Hey, it's 11 p.m. your time." I'm like, "Are you prepared to go to 1?"
yeah. I mean, that's that's the thing when
4 o'clock here.
That's the thing when I when I get Josh on as well. I know like he reads like so many things.
It was cool seeing his reactions too, kind of like in the real time, like mind blowing stuff, and
but
yeah.
Anyway, cool. Thank you all. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Dustin. Thank you all who were in the chat. Thank you all for watching. Join the Greyhorn Pagans, join the Pagan Revival, join us Seekers at www.greyhornpagans.com, or find us wherever. We're everywhere, basically. So thank you all. I'm now really gonna end it here. So
peace.
Until
Press
next
that
time.
button.
I am.